if you want to support the show, any of the shows, either this or whichever show, I'm not on right now because this is just a blanket ad for all of them, and the website, you can go to bewareofspoilers.com. In the description for any of the episodes of Beware of Spoilers, there is the option to donate. If you don't want to donate that way, you can donate directly through the website. We do have that on mwpnews.com. And if you don't want to support that way, then going to mwpnews.com will help out because we have ads there. We don't want to keep it, where there's a lot of ads. There's a few ads. But the point is we want to make it so that way, we can sustain this for the long term. If people donate, we're never going to paywall anything, I don't think, as of right now. But you know, if people start donating, we'll start doing cooler and cooler stuff. Like donations are how we get to cover stuff like Tribeca and other, film festivals. And, we may be able to bring on more people to help out. So if you want to help out the show and you want more content from us, by all means, uh, even just going and giving us a 5-star rating on Spotify helps out a lot. But that's it. That's the only ad we'll have on the podcast ever. But here's whatever podcast you're going to be listening to. Good morning, and welcome to the Backlog Files. I am Adam. It's Thursday morning. About a week ago, we had the release of this game, and now I finally, played enough of it to get a good sense and review it fully. And the game is Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, the new remake. This was announced completely by surprise in the what's it called in the Nintendo Direct last year. Um, and one more thing kind of thing at the very end. And let's give a little. This is now the second week in a row that we talk about something that is inherently one of my favorite things of all time, like in this medium. Because last week we talked about Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, which remains to this day one of my favorite games of all time. Blue Rescue Team, Red Rescue Team. Um, Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door is in that conversation, where this is one of my favorite games ever. Um, and I think I'm not alone in that assertion, where I'm like, this is one of the best games. It's definitely the best Mario RPG, like in the world of like Superstar Saga and the Mario and Luigi series. Then this, and then if you take Super Mario RPG, like this is definitely in that conversation of best one of those, if not hands down the best. And I didn't think we were going to get this because we had already gotten Paper Mario on Switch Online expansion, which I had started playing in prep for this fairly recently. And I I think one of the things about the Paper Mario franchise is that from games 4 and 5 kind of get a bad rep. I never played Sticker Star. Let me just put that out there. I did play Origami King, and you can hear my thoughts on that. It's going to be going up on 30-minute reviews at some point in the near future because I got to re-upload the episode. Um, but I did talk about the Origami King, and I didn't hate the game. I think the mechanics worked well enough. It's just not something that I was particularly fond of, but it was serviceable as a distant sequel in this storied franchise. And I think that like one of the things I did really like about it was the way they committed to the paper aesthetic and how well that worked for that game. Um, is it perfect? No, but if that was the thing that got me really hyped about this was the fact that like that game looks so great, and now we're gonna do that with Thousand Year Door, which is already a great game. Um, and for better or for worse, the game is largely untouched, just with modern graphics. There are some quality of life things that I love. I love the fact that they, um, like, maybe I'm misremembering, but like, I don't recall this, but I seem to recall that like the area where you go to get the fast travel system, it wasn't quite as easy as it is in this, where it's a little platform like the Thousand Year Door that opens up these warp pipes that you can use to get to any of the other worlds. I don't recall it being that easy. I recall there being like not a puzzle, but needing to use the hammer to open up things. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but playing this, that immediately struck me as something I'm like, oh, this is great and very easy to use. Um, then there was the addition of the quick switch out for the partners. Just absolutely fantastic. Because that was, I think, the biggest pitfall of it was needing to go into the start menu each time to switch your partner. Like, say you need to use, Flurry, or you need to use Vivian, or you need to use anyone like that. Having to go into the start menu each time to switch partners to do something was annoying, and they fixed that here. And I think that worked out very well for this game to make it a little bit more enjoyable. Um, and I think too, with like keeping the story largely intact is one of those things. Like I said, for better or for worse, I'm not overly fond of chapters 2 and 3, being the woods with the tree with the punies, and then episode 3 was the glitch pit, where you're just kind of battling through. Like, the glitch pit feels grindy, and it still feels grindy. Where it's like mission battle after battle after battle after battle, and it's like, okay, there's not enough freaking monotony, and it's not puzzles in in the woods. It's kind of just you know walking up and down this tree over and over again, and the fact that the enemies don't respawn is good and bad, because the game discourages grinding in a really interesting way, where as you level up, you get less experience for killing earlier monsters, which is smart, because if it was just you could, but then on the other hand, it's like your attack stat isn't an adjustable stat, um, and both those things are intact exactly as they were in the original, which is a bit of a shame, because it is just one of those things where it feels kind of, just as grindy as it was, and just as kind of repetitive as it was. Um, there's also a weird change. Like, I'm not entirely sure why, but they changed the noise that you use in Hooktail's castle to defeat Hooktail. Um, and I think Hooktail's castle is a little bit more linear than I remember, because like I don't remember this time encountering anything that tells me I have to find a way to emulate the sounds of, in this game, a frog, in the original a cricket, and because that makes that because Hooktail that hurts Hooktail. Like, I don't remember that in there. Um, in this playthrough, but like, I had to have encountered something at some point that tells me that. I don't remember it though. But I found the badge before I got to that, and it's not like I was doing any deep exploring and just like, oh, here's a badge, let me grab that. It's it's an it's weird in an interesting way. What else have we got here that we can address? Yeah, I think that the game ages very well. Those things aside, and the game is still a ton of fun. It's still definitely worth your time to play, especially in this new format. Under our rating system, this would be a 5 out of 5, because I think this is definitely worth full price of admission at $60 retail. Um, because I think that it does deliver a complete experience. Um, do I think this is gonna be my game of the year? That's gonna be rough, because last year I had that tirade about how Resident Evil 4 Remake should not have been included as game of the year, because it's like Resident Evil 4 is already one of the best games ever made, and you're gonna take that, remake it basically the same, and then be like, oh well, that's why it's game of the year now. It's like, well, you did what you were expected, and it's kind of the same thing here. Short of colossally fucking up and bringing in the sticker system, or changing the game fundamentally in a way where it's no longer Thousand Year Door, you are looking at remaking one of the best games ever made to begin with. So, in my opinion, and even if not one of the best games ever made, the best Mario RPG. It's like when the Superstar Saga remake came out a few years ago, maybe like 5 years ago. It was on the 3DS. But when that came out, it's like, this game was already great. Short of doing something more with it, um, and colossally messing up, you were not looking at a situation where this game was going to be that poorly received. Now, that said, I think my biggest issue with this is that Nintendo has tended to recently, um, create experiences outside of what we already know if they're going to re-release these games. Like, one of there's a recurring joke through it where, as Mario is going through his adventure to collect the crystal stars and then open the thousand-year door, Luigi is going through a similar mission. Similar but not, where he has to rescue this other princess who gets kidnapped, and then he has to find the 7 parts of this special compass. Like, and as it goes on, you hear more of the story from Luigi. And he tells his version of events, and then if you talk to his partner, who's next to him, the partner's like, this guy's full of shit, here's what actually happened, and it led to my misfortune, that's why I'm following Luigi around. And what this reminded me of, when this game was announced, I was like, oh, well, we got Bowser's Fury in Super Mario 3D World, which is a port of a Wii U game. You know, New Super Luigi U was included in New Super Mario Bros. U when ported to the Switch, which was, this little side thing. Then there was, again, using, what was the Superstar Saga remake, there was the entire Bowser storyline. Which is, I think it was called Bowser's Fury also. But this is all something that I was like, oh, cool, we might get that with Luigi's story. And I think that that's kind of the game's biggest shortcoming for me, is that the amount of add-ons, there are not that many add-ons in this game to make it like, oh, well, they really, like, it's basically it's a ground-up remake. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not upset that, that's what it is, because, again, that's what it was advertised as. But this is one of those things that I'm concerned about, because it's something we've seen across the video game industry. This idea that let's take something and let's give people an expectation for what we will do in this kind of thing in the future. What we can expect from a remake or a re-release on a new console. And then let's slowly chip away at that until we can see what's the bare minimum we can do at the highest price. And I think that that's something that is unfortunately present here, where it's like, I don't think that Luigi's story needed to be nearly as deep or as large as Mario's story is in this. It could have been a quick thing. Like, either way, they could have added it in and, like, you beat the game, here's Luigi's story, or they could have just added in when you do the interstitials between each chapter of Mario's story, where you do the Peach interstitial, and you do the, and you do the Bowser interstitial, you also do the Luigi interstitial. Like, that would have been something that would have added to this experience and been like, oh, and here's something new for people who have already played the game. Like, yeah, you get this running joke where Luigi keeps fucking up and still manages to win, and every time he's telling the story, Mario falls asleep, standing up. It's a shame they didn't do more with that, though. And I think that that is kind of my biggest disappointment. But still, like, I would still say this game's still a 5 out of 5, because it doesn't promise to do anything more than that, and it does exactly what it sets out to do. Like, that's what I was here for. I was here to see, this exact game that I ended up getting. The fact that I didn't get more is not the game's fault. It's the fact that I wanted more than the game promised is not the game's fault. So it's still 5 out of 5. But we'll wrap up there for today. As always, if you want to find out more about what we're doing here on Beware of Spoilers, on 30-minute reviews, and on the back and on exploring hyperspace lanes, you can go to mwpnews.com, where we keep updated lists of what episodes will be going live when, as well as an index so you can quickly and efficiently find where we reviewed various content. We have a couple hundred reviews up. If you're looking for a specific thing, that's a great resource. It's mwpnews.com/index, and then that's a list of everything. You can just Control F, see if we've done it, and we'll be incrementally adding new stuff to that as we go. This next week we have Pokemon Trozy, which will be our continuation of the Pokemon ranking. Before we wrap up with Dash and then go into Gen 4, I'm looking forward to this. We're getting into the fun times. More of the fun times. I think right now we're in the heart of the golden age for Pokemon. And then after that, I think our next big game is Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. Let me check my release calendar. Yeah, we have Luigi's Mansion 2, the remake. We have Frostpunk. And then there was one other big game that I just saw. Why didn't I write it down? Because because that would have been the smart thing to do. I guess look at a list. Um, well, that's in October. It's next month. I was like, ooh, oh right, Ace Combat 7 for the Switch. We're gonna talk about. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.